A new study's been released showing that glyphosate, the main ingredient in Monsanto's Roundup, is not safe, even at levels that the EPA is telling us are safe. In fact, there may be no safe level of exposure to this toxic chemical that makes up most of the herbicide Roundup that's produced by Monsanto. Farron, the troublesome thing about this development is Monsanto has known this now for decades. As you know, I've just finished taking a whole round of depositions in this case, but here this study's saying, look, it's not just cancer that we're concerned about where it comes to exposure to Roundup. You know that every 30 minutes it seems like there's a Roundup commercial with some cat out there spraying Roundup in short sleeves, in shorts, where it's absorbed through the skin. The company knows that's wrong to do that. Their own in-house scientists said we can't allow that to go on. But we now see that it has to do with genotoxicity, intestinal bacteria that are causing all types of gastrointestinal issues, and sexual dysfunction. I mean, that's just the short list.
It really is. And again, these are at levels that the EPA tells us totally safe. You have nothing to worry about if you're exposed to this level of glyphosate. So these independent researchers came along and said, okay, well, we're going to test it because we know you're not, Mr. EPA. So we're going to go and test it. They tested it on these lab rats, and sure enough, within months, a few months, they noticed these problems that had developed, and it alters the biology of these creatures, and it can do the same in humans.
Let me put this in perspective, okay? There's no question that the toxicologist that worked on this and followed it for years, the toxicologist clearly knew this. They knew that they had not done enough testing. They knew that you certainly can't go out and tell everybody, hey, this is safe. They had not even done testing to prove whether it's safe. But you mentioned the EPA. The EPA in this case, I'm going to try this case. I'll be trying this case in St. Louis, and I'm going to try the EPA. For once, we're going to tell the story about the EPA being part of these types of corporate frauds. As a matter of fact, the CEO of this company, of Monsanto, actually worked with the EPA, was also head of the EPA. You see this transition that takes place between not just the CEO, but people in lower management that move on to the FDA that has allowed this to happen, the EPA that's allowed this to happen. The point is, we know that this is a product that will kill people. But nevertheless, the EPA keeps hanging on to the idea, well, it hasn't been proven. Well, the EPA also knows that the tests that were done initially to even get this put on the market, that those tests were fraudulent. They were fraudulent, and they were done by the EPA and a toxicologist named Kushner, who was hired by Monsanto to phony up some data. That was decades ago. And this has been on the market killing people ever since.
Well, and it's important to point out, too, when we talk about the EPA, it's not just the Scott Pruitt EPA. This was EPA under Obama, under W, under Clinton, under Bush Sr., and under Reagan. That's how long this issue's been in front of them. And just to remind people here, you spent most of the month of April taking depositions in these cases. You know more about this than probably anyone else. And one of the things, you gave a fantastic presentation not that long ago, I think early April, where you talked about the fact that even Monsanto, on the warning labels of these bottles of Roundup, compared to the commercial has the guy, short sleeves, wearing shorts, out there spraying it around, all happy. They're just getting rid of the dandelions.
No gloves.
But Monsanto says, and the bottle says, you're supposed to essentially be wearing almost a hazmat suit. Don't let it touch your skin, because if it touches your skin, this thing is detectable in the bloodstream within 30 minutes.
Yeah, well, not only that, Farron, unfortunately, I'm not able to talk about that. After seeing the documents, after doing the depositions, and got more depots coming up, there is zero question that Monsanto has known that Roundup has the ability to cause cancer and other physical injuries. There's no question that Monsanto gamed the system by putting in place people at the EPA FDA, name it. If it's a public entity, regulatory entity, Monsanto placed their people in there. And they also understood that what they were telling the American public about Roundup was an absolute lie. Now, I can tell you that, having taken the depositions. Unfortunately, I can't show you the documents, but I've seen the documents, and the documents are overwhelmingly show that this is a corrupt, fraudulent corporation that has allowed this to go on, understanding clearly that they were killing people all over the globe.
Well, we may not be able to, show the documents or disclose what's in those, but what we do have is this whole body of independent scientific research. Even before this study, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the study came out showing that, guess what? The most popular beer and wine brands in the United States are contaminated with Roundup. And now we know that it's not even safe basically at any level.
Well, it's in cereal. It's in children's baby formula at levels. First of all, there is no safe level. Let me make that clear. There is no safe level. This is a product that builds up in the system. They'd like to say, well, it just moves right through the system. No, it doesn't move right through the system. They find it in people's urine that have never even worked around the farm entity. We're getting this in our food every day. Babies are getting it in their baby formula every day. And the EPA knows this. The government knows it. But it's one of those deals where they think this is such a huge disaster. It's kind of like the story that we did yesterday where we're talking about, some disasters are just so big with Pruitt, with the EPA. Pruitt says, well, we can't tell the public that they're drinking what's in their drinking water because it's bad. It's really bad. And if we actually told the public, it would be so bad that we'd have a crisis on our hands. So they covered up the study. This is the same kind of deal. This is so big that it's in our cereal, it's in our cookies, it's in virtually every kind of wheat, rice-based food. It's in beer, it's in wine. And so now we have this thing that's completely it's out of control. And the government had, under, as you point out, 4 or 5 administrations have had no guts, even though they've been told this is clearly a problem. Interestingly enough, while we're talking about, again, I just call the shots like it is. Democrats have been Monsanto's biggest ally in making sure that the whole GMO, Roundup-ready products are sold all over the globe.
Well, and that's, people have to understand with the toxicity of this too. The whole reason we have Roundup-ready crops is so that they can go out there and just spray it all over everything, and you can't wash that off.
Right.
It gets into the very, genetics of those plants. It soaks in, so you can rinse it, you can wash it all you want. It's inside of it.
Right. See, people misunderstand the GMO issue is GMO, especially with Roundup. There are Roundup-ready seeds. There are mutations that are created by playing with the DNA of seeds, and they do it for one purpose. So they can use this toxin, this poison. They can saturate the seed, and the seed can live with this toxin. The seed can live with this poison. And the seed is then what we put in our body by way of rice and by way of wheat. This is a story that I got to tell you, I've got plenty more depositions ahead of me. And it's a case that I'll be trying down in St. Louis. And when this story can be told. Right now, for some reason, you got a California judge I'm not trying in front of this California judge who says, we got to keep this real quiet. Now, can you imagine? We have to keep this real quiet. We can't tell the American public what we're finding right now in the documents at Monsanto. We can't talk about it. We got a gag order. I mean, it's just insanity.